Let's break down how you guys can dominate your Dynasty startups. Today, we're going to go through some of our favorite strategies. We'll talk about stuff that you can do pre-startup, stuff that you can do during the startup from like a macro perspective. Then we'll go through, team construction, a little bit more micro detail in the early rounds, in the mid rounds, in the late rounds. And then we'll also talk about how you can kind of grade your own startup and talk about exactly what makes a successful startup. So, Danny, I'm fired up to get into this. Do you want to start with what we can do at the beginning of a startup?
Well, I was just going to say, speaking of startups, we actually have our own coming up soon. We're actually doing a DEVY startup over on the channel. And I know a lot of the people that will eventually be in that league are probably going to go back and watch these.
Yeah, probably. And we're probably ruining everybody's strategy by talking about this from the start. So if you guys are interested in that league, it'll be linked in the description. Let's start with pre-startup. What can you do before the draft even starts? People are joining the league. You're pretty much just gathering information at that point. And we like to call this evaluating your league market. We sometimes will get a piece of paper, write down everything we can think of for our league mates. Specifically for us, it's pretty easy because we make content. A lot of you guys probably share similar opinions, similar values to us. But if you guys are in real life, you know all the Dynasty players. I could use you as an example. I know that Danny is probably likely to go after rebuilding assets, young players. He's a Cowboys fan. He's obviously going to overvalue Dak and CeeDee Lamb, stuff like that. Think about what you know about the Dynasty players. Write it all down. How do they draft and redraft? If these are your redraft buddies, who's everybody's favorite team? Are they a sharp player? Are they your league's taco? Is this their first Dynasty league? Maybe you guys are all doing your first Dynasty league together. It becomes more difficult if you don't know them in real life. Like if you met them in our Discord, you met them on Twitter, you met them on Reddit or something. But you can examine kind of whose content they follow and that kind of stuff.
Exactly. And don't let that stop you. So for example, I mean, we mentioned obviously the startup that we have coming up with our viewers. Typically in those leagues, we'll talk about some of the settings and we'll talk about some of the league behavior based off, an FSE league versus maybe a league you'll run with your buddies at work, for example, that are a redraft-centric mindset. Well, I'm also in a startup now with some industry folks. So Dataroma, Dave Kluge is in that, Ron Stewart, Jacob Sanderson, like a lot of guys that you would see on Twitter. And just learning about their psychology, how they approach Dynasty, everything, like even just through conversations that I've had in the sleeper DMs. Well, we're in round 10, round 11 now, and just based off those conversations, based off understanding that, the psychology of it pre-draft, I kind of knew what the plan was going to happen coming into the draft, and by round 10, round 11, everything that I possibly could have imagined that I would have wanted to accomplish in the startup, I have so far. I have 3 2026 ones. I have an extra 2026 2, an extra 2027 3. I built up that liquidity. Again, we'll talk about what is a successful startup later on in this video, but understanding the psychology of your league mates, even just through simple conversations, is going to help you so much.
Yeah, when you get into the league, ask questions. The more you know going in, the better your strategy will be, especially if you don't know anything about these people beforehand. If you met them on Reddit, if you met them on Twitter, if you met them in our Discord or whatever, if you know these guys in real life or these people in real life, you probably have a better idea who they like already, what their takes are, how they like to draft from like a redraft perspective, or maybe you've done other Dynasty leagues with them. So do as much market research as you can. Your league individual market will vary from what you and I talk about is a fair trade. Maybe a fair trade that you and I talk about in our leagues is not a fair trade in the league that you play. And it's up to you to do that evaluation of your own league market before the startup. During the startup, during the season, you're gathering information on your league mates.
Differentiating the macro market tendencies versus what your micro market may be determining, and using those valuations to your advantage, using that bias to your advantage. Because like I said, you can look at it from a pure macro lens of what a generalized market's going to look like, but you're never going to know what your startup's going to look like until you actually study the psychology and understand your league mates.
Yeah, of course. And knowing your league settings is a big part of that. Now, I'm not talking about the basic fantasy player blanket statement advice of know that it's a one quarterback league, know that it's a PPR. I'm saying really get to know the intricacies of your Dynasty settings, because Dynasty is a lot more complex than redraft, at least the way that you and I play Superflex, tight end premium, third round reversal, big play bonuses, whatever. As crazy of the settings as you have, the better research you should do on those settings, because you'd be surprised how people will still draft the same if it was a one quarterback PPR Dynasty league as if it was a Superflex, tight end premium, big play bonuses, tiered PPR.
The beauty of fantasy football is there isn't an end-all be-all on a certain way to play the game. You might be with your buddies that you started in a league in 2012 and you're rocking on MFL, non-PPR, start 7, one quarterback league. Or you maybe picked up, a trendy FSC league and you're in a 12 team, 1.5x tight end premium, super flex, start 11, start 12 type of league. Like, the strategy in both those types of leagues is going to vary. Are you in a best ball league? Are you in a lineup league? Like, the strategy will be impacted based on the exact settings that your league will follow. For example, I mean, just from a micro perspective, maybe you target more Jameson Williams types, Tyreek Hill types if you're getting big play bonuses in a best ball league.
Yeah, absolutely. And the biggest factors obviously are like the super flex tight end premium. Those are the easy ones. Obviously in the super flex, the elite quarterbacks are going to gain value. Ideally, you would want to have probably 2 to 3 capable starters in a standard 12-man league. Tight end premiums, you know, Brock Bowers, Trey McBride, those guys are going to go higher. You can utilize those guys in your flex spots. If you do have, say, a TJ Hawkinson and a George Kittle and a tight end premium, you can actually start both of those players, whereas in a regular, you probably wouldn't want to.
And even just like specifically on the tight end premium standpoint, it's like, are you in a 1.25 tight end premium? Are you in a 2.0 tight end premium? Are you in a 2 tight end start league? Like, the actual value of the tight end position, even in a tight end premium setting, will be impacted depending on just how much of a premium it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And then obviously 2 shallow leagues versus deeper leagues. Let's say you're in a 8-man league or a 10-man league, start 7, 1 quarterback, stud wide receivers and running backs, and
overpay for everything.
Yeah, overpay for everything. Elite quarterbacks, elite tight ends, they're all going to matter so much more than a 14-man start 12 where it's a super flex and the depth players like Jacoby Myers matter so much more in a format like that. The more casual your league, I would say generally, if you guys are looking to start a dynasty league, the more casual the league mates in your leagues, the more complex you would want the settings to be. Because if you're doing your research, if you understand your league settings and your league market, you're going to be at a bigger advantage if the settings are more confusing for your league mates, but more straightforward for you as someone doing your research.
And I would say specifically for answering your guys' questions, you know, as opposed to like the super chat format we used to do maybe a couple years ago versus ultimately answering them on Flock Fantasy, is that maybe in your super flex a couple years ago is just 12 team PPR, like rate my team, versus when you actually submit it to the site. Now, again, another tool, we'll talk about the site throughout this video because I ultimately believe flockfantasy.com is the #1 resource for attacking your startup. But just in the aspect of answering those questions, seeing the start 9, start 8, start 10 format, seeing that it's a 10-team, 12-team, seeing the ability to go through the team by team we'll talk about later in this video, like the more context that you can give us in your questions specifically, and even in the questions to yourselves in terms of how you actually value these players, is going to be impacted so dramatically. And I think the majority of casual players don't realize the difference between a start 12 league versus a start 9.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And once we've done that pre-market research, we've kind of evaluated what our league market's going to be. We understand what our league settings are going to be. Usually, you know, the way we run leagues, people are going to vote on those league settings, and you can vote either for or against certain things based on what you think might be optimal for you strategy-wise. Now it's time to start the draft. Let's say the draft is underway, 4, 5, 6 rounds into the draft. You're not going to enter the draft thinking that you're going to do, I'm competing, I'm rebuilding 100%. I'm going to tear it down and tank. Like, you want to go into your draft with the attitude and the mindset of, I'm going to do whatever is most optimal in my room. You are going to evaluate that room and think maybe going into the draft, you're like, I think this could be a good room to rebuild in because my redraft buddies are going to overvalue the Christian McCaffreys of the world. But you're only actually exacting that strategy once you've gathered some information through the first couple rounds of the draft, because the only place where your league mates cannot lie is the draft picks that they select through those first couple rounds.
Exactly. You're going to get a feeling for what type of room you're in based off those actions, and staying flexible. Again, we're not talking about the flexibility of a 7-year-old with a hip transplant. We're talking about the flexibility of Sunisa league. That's what you got to be in your startup. When you're drafting those first few rounds and your league mates are basically giving you all the clues that you could possibly ask for how they want to build their teams, that sets you up. Because guess what? If you're in the first 3 rounds and you're drafting, you know, young assets that will give you production, but also will retain value long-term, and you see Saquon Barkley go to 2-5 and he drafts in the 3rd round, he goes out there and drafts, I don't know, insert another win now.
Christian McCaffrey.
Right? Like, if you see somebody inherently do that, well, guess what? Before their 4th round pick, you know what you do? You say, hey, listen, if you want to keep building this juggernaut of a team, like, your pick's going to be late anyways. You're going to pick 111, 112. Hell, if you want to even give me your 2027 one because you want to use your 2026 one to use later in the startup, be my guest. I'm cool taking your 27 one. Go compete this year and use that pick in season or use it later in the startup. Like, that type of direction, that type of information, you won't get and you won't be able to utilize if you aren't flexible at the start of your startup.
Yeah, absolutely. And the more people in your league behaving like that, the more profitable rebuilding will be to you, because there's startups that you walked out of, I've walked out of. We've seen even Arthur in our startup in March.
Yeah.
You walk out of the startup and you got 6 ones.
Yeah. And I mean, the inverse to it is, guess what? Like maybe in some FSE leagues, it's like, oh, like the cost of trading up, like, wait, you were able to get a fourth round startup pick for a single 2026 one or a
Yeah, it works in the
like,
inverse depending on the league market as well.
Like having that feel, understanding that league, seeing the precedent of deals that are going down. I think that's another one too, by the way. If you see deals going down in the first 4 to 6 rounds of your startup and you're kind of getting a gauge for what the valuation is on certain assets, it can actually impact your negotiations future on, because you can say, hey, I mean, I disagree with the valuation of this. I think this guy fleeced this guy. Okay, no problem. Well, if that's the precedent trade in this league, I'm going to use that to my advantage. I'm not going to bitch and whine because this guy got a steal off of this guy. I'm going to try to actualize it.
Yeah, exactly. You're only gathering information at the start of your draft, and then once it actually goes on, you'll see...
Get active.
You'll see trades go down that impact what you think of the actual league market. You'll see your own negotiations impact what you think of the league market. You'll see people's draft picks impact the league market as well. Once you have that information, usually by round 4, round 5, round 6, you're like, okay, it looks like 4 teams are trying to rebuild and the other 7 teams, not including me, are trying to compete. If there's 4 teams all competing for that 101, 4 teams trying to compete for 2026 picks and all that kind of stuff, it might be more profitable to say, okay, well, I'm going to have a 1 in 8 chance of making the playoffs. Or, a 6 in 8 chance of making the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, it really just depends on what that scale is in your league, because you'll get some leagues where 10 people want to fucking compete. Well, if 10 people want to compete in a 12-man league, punt year 1, guarantee yourself a top 2 pick because you're starting Elijah Mitchell and Raheem Mostert as your running backs. And yes, that's a specific running back core that I have in no flocking right now. You tank your own pick, guarantee that you're going to pick in the top 2, and then next year, oh, shoot, I got Jeremiah Love. Okay, who wants Jeremiah Love in this league? If they have built 10 out of the 12 teams to want to compete now, and you have a potential top 5 dynasty running back dangling in front of them, then at that point, you might be able to get 2 future ones for them.
Yeah, exactly. And the less teams that are rebuilding in your league, the easier it's going to be during the startup to actually buy those first, which we'll talk about in a second. Generally, I would say it's probably safe to assume that 60, 70, maybe 80% of your league is going to want to compete year 1, because
unless you're in an FSE league.
Unless you're in a league that has a bunch of people influenced by us. But if you're playing with your work buddies, your college buddies, whatever, they're probably going to want to compete year 1, A, because they're paying to be in this league, and B, because they might not be sharper, experienced dynasty players who are willing to be patient. So generally, I would say if you're playing with your redraft buddies, it's safe to assume that it'll probably be profitable to be a 1-year punt or a rebuilding type of team out of the startup. And we'll talk about some of the things that you can use to know this for sure. And you made reference to our site, flockfantasy.com. We have 3 huge tools that are free. Obviously, you get better versions of them when you are a subscriber, but
Code FSE.
Yes, code FSE. We have free tools. Our rankings, you can get our expert rankings. That is my rankings, your rankings, Mason's rankings, the land guys' rankings, the domain guys' rankings, all together, which you can filter by age. So if you're a rebuilding team, you don't want a single player on your team over the age of 25, you could filter out our rankings by age. You could show future rookie draft picks, 2026, 2027, inside the rankings to see how much those picks are worth straight up. If somebody's offering you, say, their mid to late projected 2027 first for your startup 7-11, you might be like, okay, well, is this player worth about that? You could see where it is going in the overall startup rankings.
Well, and real quick on that too, it takes the overwhelming nature of the, I guess you could say, the mystery of the pick. Because ultimately you can see, oh, shoot, it's the 407. Well, guess what? What's the 407, Corey? What, 43rd pick, I believe?
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. Oh, who do we have ranked expert consensus at 43 overall? Okay, so the 407, give or take, is about, I don't know, Dak Prescott, right? Dak Prescott is the 407. Okay, I'm being offered, like you said, the 709 and the 608 or whatever for that pick. Well, you can actually equate, okay, would I accept this trade? Would I give up Dak Prescott for the 2 players that are ranked at those 2 spots? Like, it makes it the overwhelming nature of the unknown, just seeing the picks, into an actualized scenario where, like, oh, I see the actual players, what these picks represent.
Yeah, and obviously if better players fall there, then that's just gravy for you for trading down. And that's the trade calculator that you made reference to. So let's say, for example, somebody offers you have the 302, somebody offers you the 403 and the 709. The 302 for me is Kyler Murray. The 403 is Dak Prescott. The 709 is Kenneth Walker. That's the actualized trade. Of course, any better players fall. That's only gravy for me.
Yep.
But that's how you can kind of actualize those trade. Because like you said, it is overwhelming to see,
the picks.
yeah, just the picks. Like, who the heck are those
What does
players?
that mean?
What does that mean? I say, especially for new Dynasty players, the site can be very valuable for that. And of course, once your startup is over too, the My Teams feature, definitely the best thing you can use. You can see one of my teams here, a league that I have Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, and Cam Ward. To me, I consider that to be a surplus of quarterback assets. So I can look at a league mate of mine who only has Justin Herbert and offer him a quarterback. And you can scale your league mates' needs based on if they need running backs, if they need wide receivers, so on and so forth. And that's what the My Teams feature, the trade calculator, and of course our rankings can do for you in the startup as well.
The other factor of the site too, like you said, that is just so valuable, like in terms of a surplus asset. Say you have a surplus of the quarterback position. A lot of younger, more casual Dynasty players, not younger in the sense of age, more so younger in the sense of experience as a Dynasty player. They will say, okay, well, I have 4 tangible quarterback assets, but I need a running back. So I will just send a quarterback for a running back just to fill a need. Well, guess what? Because you have the access on the site, you don't have to make a decision that will cause a detriment to your value. At the end of the day, if you built up the surplus value at quarterback, think of your whole team as the portfolio. If you have an excess, a surplus of value at one position, you're not just going to send it for a position you're weak in. You're going to take that valuation and see if you can replicate it into that a different position. And having that access on the site, whether it's you get a second round pick of insulation, or whether that's you trade Dak Prescott straight up for a Bucky Irving type who's relatively in the same startup range, like having the access to that information and knowing what types of assets you can realistically trade for, trade your already drafted assets for, is just such a crucial information piece.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we have features on the site where we can actually walk you through that. You can sign up using code FSE where you can get our rankings specifically. Like you can sort by my rankings or Danny's rankings on the trade calculator, on our rankings tab, on the My Teams feature. You can submit your team for review, which we break down live about once a week. You guys can check out those streams if you're interested. And we also have the buy, sell, hold report and the team review as well, where we can like literally look at your league and be like, okay, you have a bunch of running backs on your team. Let's go look at the running back needy teams. And we can give you actual trade proposals after we break down your team live on the channel. And again, you get a free team review voucher when you sign up annually. So go check that out. That'll be linked down below in the pinned comment. Now let's talk about during the rookie draft. This is something that you and I absolutely love doing, which is collecting future rookie picks. And there's so many reasons why we love doing this. First and foremost, I should specify that you should try not to trade your own rookie picks during the startup, because rookie picks are as cheap as they will ever be during the startup. Dynasty players, when we're in a startup, not patient. We want our guys, we want to trade up. So it's way more beneficial to you to be the patient one and collect the rookie picks, because 70 to 80 to maybe even 90 to 95% of your league mates will be impatient. They will want their guys. You can exploit that impatience and get as many rookie picks, whether it's first, seconds, thirds, whatever, just tack them onto your deals and they will never be cheaper.
Correct. Now I will say, this is a little bit more generalized. I would say the better term for it is pick your spot if you are going to trade a rookie pick. Don't just send it willy-nilly because you hire someone and you want to trade up and you're not actually thinking about the equatable opportunity cost you're paying. And this actually works both ways. Understanding, am I getting enough to trade down? Understanding, am I paying cheap enough where the trade up is worth it? Understanding the relative cost, having that access to the calculator is going to give you the best insight towards ultimately whether you should make that move or not. Because guess what? Who knows? Like, what if somebody's just so addicted to rebuilding? It's like, yeah, you know what? I got this 4th round startup pick, but if you send me your 11th and your 2026 one, I'll send you my 4th rounder. Like, okay, in that league market, maybe you trade your 2026 one. In other league markets, like, yeah, I will move down to my 4th for 6th, and you also give me your 2026 one. If that's the cost, don't make that move.
Yeah. There's plenty. I've had trades where I've been at the 408 and someone will give me their 511 and their future rookie first the next year. Like those are trades.
Free money.
Exactly. And if you think about it, like you said, Bucky Irving, Breece Hall, same tier for me at running back. Let's say that was the 2 picks.
Yeah.
And I got Breece Hall in a second for Bucky Irving, who's in the same tier for me. That's easy money. Like you said, maybe I even get a pick swap later on in the startup in addition to that rookie second that I picked up. So keeping in mind that your league mates will be motivated to trade their first, seconds, and third round picks, especially seconds and thirds.
Yeah.
People will give you those for nothing, seemingly. People have kind of caught on over the years to maybe not trade their first away to you. But seconds and thirds, I've noticed, especially rounds like 9 through 15, you can collect a lot of second and thirds in those rounds.
Yeah, 100%. You notice, like, typically in the 6th to 8th round range, it's like, okay, if somebody wants to send a first trade up for one of those picks, that's about the equatable value you'll see sometimes. I mean, an example actually in the startup that I'm in, not in specifically to rookie picks, but I mean, actually I can make another example for the rookie pick specifically for the purpose of this topic. I saw Dak Prescott fell to the 411. I had CeeDee Lamb on this team. At that point, I was still relatively flexible in the startup, but I had realized the overall temperament in the room, like 6 quarterbacks had gone on in the last 8 picks. If I didn't move up and get aggressive for Dak, I would have missed the window to potentially pair next to Drake May. And it costed me, I believe, the 6'10 plus my 2020 6'2 to move up and get Dak Prescott. Later in the startup, once I realized that, okay, well, people are actually being a little bit more aggressive than I wanted. I don't really want to compete year one. Fuck, I gave up my 2026 2. What am I going to do? Just because I gave up that 2026 2 in an earlier deal doesn't preclude me from going after it later in the startup. And that's exactly what I did. I traded my 2 in that deal for Dak. I believe it ended up being like Tua and a 2026 2 for Dak. But I ended up getting that 2026 2 back in a deal. I believe I sent I got the 904 and the 907 for the 1011, the 611, and I got my own 2026 2 back on my side for that.
Yeah. There's no, like you said, there's no law saying you can't go get it back later.
Exactly.
And generally, trade ups and trade downs are usually going to center around tier breaks. Like when you get on the clock, we'll probably talk about this right now. A lot of leagues that we're in, including the one that you're in with like industry people, people just want to stick and pick. They're like, oh, I'm picking, you know, at the 111 in each round or whatever. I'm just going to stick and pick every single time. The stick and pick strategy, which we'll talk about in a second, only really applies if you're getting the best tier break value falling to you at every single pick, which is why we suggest trading up when you see a run on quarterbacks and you notice a tier break, trading down if you get stuck on the clock. It happens to us all the time. We get on the clock and we're like, all these guys blend together. I want to trade back.
Always be fluid, always be in constant communication with your league mates, always be willing to move up and down the board. And then another example, again, this was the example I was going to make earlier, but I wanted to make the rookie pick example first. I was at the 301 in the startup. You guys know me. I love Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter, I'd be willing to take in the top 20 of a startup. I'd be willing to take in that, mid to back end of the second round. But just because I have him ranked there doesn't mean that everybody else in that league is going to have him ranked there. So at the 301, even though technically he's the clear best player on my board, I did play the ADP game a little bit. I noticed, okay, he's actually listed more so at 40 overall here. I know that the people that are actually really high on Travis Hunter pick at the other side of the board. I ended up moving down from the 301 to the 302. And then from the 302 to the 303, I still ended up getting Travis Hunter, and it ended up equating me like 8 future like pick slide ups. So I think one of them was like the 701 to like the 610. One of them was like, the 601 to the 510 or whatever the case may be. I'll show you the exact examples like when you see the actual startup on the, they'll be on the graphics. But basically, I could have just stuck and picked Travis Hunter because he was my clear best player on the board at the 301. But the fact that I traded down 2 picks, got pick upgrades later on that I ended up basically equating, now I have 3 2026 ones, like I said, an extra 2026 2, an extra 2027 3. Well, I afforded myself that opportunity by giving myself free value early in the startup.
Yeah, and we'll talk about trade advice in the next video, and Danny's going to be a good resource for that because he's a sicko in the DMs all the time. But again, here's the thing on rookie picks. They'll never be cheaper because they're far away. In the eyes of your league mates, the startup draft is happening now. The rookie picks, next year's rookie picks, 2 years from now is rookie picks. Those are future Corey's problem. You know what I mean? They're not worried about those. And everyone always thinks their picks are late too. In the startup, nobody thinks that they're going to have the 101 in the startup unless they're intentionally rebuilding. Maybe they think they might have the 101, but nobody thinks that they're going to have the 103 to 107 ever. Everyone is trading away their first round pick with the assumption that they think it's 110, 111, 112 every single time. And if it's not, you profit big time. If you're on the board 6'11", Tyreek Hill's still on the board, and someone's like, hey, I'll give you my 2026 1 because I want Tyreek Hill, I'm competing. He has a bunch of injuries next year or whatever, and his pick ends up being 107. He thought that pick was 111, 112 when he traded it.
And use that bias to your advantage. Like, you want to kind of, rub their shoulders a little bit, say, oh, wow, like you got a great team. You have a really good chance of winning year one. Like, there's no other competing teams in your league, or in our league right now, but I don't know, like if you make this type of deal, you might have the edge over them. Like just that common human psychology of like convincing them, oh shit, I'm a move away from being the clear top dog in this league. Use that to your advantage. People want to believe that they are the best. If you're feeding into their ego, they'll believe what you're saying because they don't want to believe you're lying to them. And maybe you're not lying to them, but you know, you give them some sweet talk. You say, hey, like that team's looking good. Like Brace Hall, I think he's going to have a bounce back year. Jared Goff, you know, he lost Ben Johnson, but he had 37. Like whatever the case may be, like especially when it comes to like for me personally, that's more so in an industry folk perspective. Obviously, I'm not going to, you know, feed into your guys' egos because you guys have access to our rankings. You know whether I'm full of shit or whether I'm just, you know, actually telling the truth. But specifically when people don't have access to my rankings in an industry league, like, yeah, I'll feed your ego. Yeah, your team's looking good. Like, go win the chip. Like, there's 3 other teams, but you make this deal. You're number 1.
Danny's the startup pickup artist right now. He's
no bullshit. Like, feeding into people's egos will, like, it will also increase their feeling of you towards future deals.
Yeah,
that's nice.
We'll talk about that in the trade strategy video more in depth. But let's talk about some round by round. How do you build your team strategy? That was a lot of macro talk. We went, I don't know, 25, 30 minutes on that.
Yeah.
Early rounds, let's talk about micro strategy. How do you actually want to build your team? Obviously, our rankings are available specific player takes. But in terms of how you want to actually construct your team, we talk about it all the time. You want to build your team around long-term value. This means inherently that running backs are not the priority. They have the shortest shelf life of any fantasy football position. Quarterbacks in a superflex conversely have the longest shelf life of any position. Elite quarterbacks, you know, the Burrows, the Mahomes, the Hurts, those type of guys are the most expensive assets in Dynasty for a reason. It's because they're consistent, you know, producers and because they hold value long-term because they're, you know, have huge contracts with their actual teams. They're the most important person in the franchise. Jaden Daniels is the most important person in the Commanders franchise right now. They will do anything to make sure Jaden Daniels is okay, and you will kind of adopt that strategy yourself.
So the way to view it is there's certain types of dynasty assets. There's 3 main pillars for dynasty assets. There's players that you're betting on in terms of production value, knowing inherently that a year from now, it's more than likely that, hey, guess what? That fresh Ferrari you got off the lot is probably going to lose 20% of its value.
And that would be Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey, older assets.
The other aspect is, okay, maybe it's not going to give me the production value year 1, but I believe this is a stock that I want to invest in right now because maybe a year from now or 2 years from now, it can accrue a ton of value. A prime example for me specifically in my rankings would be like a Drake May or a Caleb Williams. Like you can make the case that those are the pillar assets, but I'm just saying like enough people have enough risk level with those guys where I still think they're at a discount for what their ultimate ceilings are. And then, like you said, there's players that fit both criteria, like a Jaden Daniels, like a Lamar Jackson, a Josh Neighbors, Malik Neighbors, CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase. Like there's just so like specifically in the first round of your starts, you will see the pillar assets, which makes sense. You are taking them in the first round because you expect to build your dynasty team around those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. So quarterbacks priority, especially in Superflex. Again, we've talked about the quarterback dynamic, how it's a little bit deeper and whatnot, but generally speaking, great quarterback's a great quarterback. They're a great asset for your team. Running backs, specifically older ones, not a priority for us in the early rounds. We want to, again, we're going to miss out on a Saquon Barkley in a startup because we're just simply not willing to take him where he goes in most startups. Like, we'll get aging running back production in the 8th round when we know if we're competing or not versus taking Saquon in the 2nd or 3rd.
And I'm not, we're not just saying that. I'm not just saying that because I'm a Cowboys fan. Like we said that about Christian McCaffrey a couple years ago.
Cooper Kupp, Deebo Samuel, Tyreek Hill.
Like it's just the inherent cycle. Like you look at Tyreek Hill's ADP last year, he was going in the 3rd round of startups. I've seen him go multiple times, round 7, round 8 now. It's like, okay, yeah, like we are fully believing that Tyreek Hill can have a big time bounce back in the redraft, but also acknowledging the fact that despite him going as a top 3 overall pick last year, one down year, and he falls quite literally 50 picks in dynasty value.
Yeah, and he went from being worth multiple first-round picks last year to probably worth a late first at most. Like the deal I did with Claire was essentially a late first of equatable value for Tyreek Hill. So again, build your team around long-term value, steer clear of aging running backs early in the draft, build your team around, long shelf life quarterbacks, wide receivers, especially young and productive ones. You made reference to the BTJs and the Drake Londons and the Nikos and the Jamar Chases of the world. They're Bitcoin, man. Everybody wants those guys. The more of them you can have, the better your team is going to be from a value standpoint. And also when it comes time to compete, those guys are going to give you a lot of great production because they're also highly valued redraft assets. There is a few elite tight ends in Dynasty that have the same effect, the Brock Bowers, Trey McBrides of the world. but that's pretty much where the list ends until, maybe the rookies hit Loveland and Warren and those guys, and Laporta has a bounce back. But generally speaking, you want to build your team, foundational quarterbacks, foundational wide receivers, maybe an elite tight end if one falls to you. Through rounds 1 to 6 or so, you want your assets to either fit a rebuild, a 1-year punt, a contender, whatever, build that you have. And usually for me, that means that I will tie break. I'll take Devon Achane or Amarian Hampton over Saquon Barkley because they fit both builds. I can compete with Amarian Hampton, or I can rebuild with Amarian Hampton because he's a 22-year-old rookie running back. I cannot rebuild with Saquon Barkley. I am immediately showing my cards. I am now a competitive team. The second at 211, I select Saquon Barkley.
I'm not just saying this because Saquon's old, but that will be the equivalent to, like I said in the video, of investing in the 7-year-old with the hip replacement in terms of flexibility, as opposed to the Amarian Hampton would be your Sinisa Lee.
Yeah, there you go. So mid-rounds, early rounds, stay flexible. We already kind of covered that ad nauseum. Mid-rounds, you are essentially got to make a decision at this point. You're going to tailor the players that you go after in the mid-rounds to your strategy, because you can argue that there's great value to be had, especially in leagues that you and I play in, on competitive assets in the mid-rounds. But you can also argue, if you're in a league market that drafts like it's a redraft league, that you're going to get insanely good values on rebuilding assets. So we did a mock draft on our channel about a week ago. Danny went rebuild in the mock draft. Nobody's shocked by that. I went competitive in the mock draft. Probably nobody's shocked by that either. Danny, you selected Emeka Egbuka, Matthew Golden, Luther Burden, Jerry Jeudy, Byshell Tootin, Kyle Williams. And if you guys are in a really competitive
3.3% rookies there.
Yeah. And if you're in a really competitive, everybody wants competitive assets, you'll get better values than the ones that you listed there. And vice versa, I go Jonathan Taylor, James Cook, Chris Olave, Chris Godwin, David Montgomery, Tucker Kraft, and DeAndre Swift. You made your intentions clear. I'm building a rebuilding type of team. And of course, if it was a real startup, you'd probably be maneuvering the board, trading down.
And that's what I was going to say. Like, people might be saying, oh my God, like you drafted just all rookies. Like the risk portfolio there was massive. It's like, okay, I did that in a mock draft because I can't trade up. I can't trade down. I can't trade for future picks. I mean, I'll just show you like a graphic on the screen of the startup that I'm in right now. I haven't, until David Njoku with the 10-11, the last pick I had made was the 603 on Quinshon Judkins. Just because that your intention is building a young team doesn't mean you have to use every pick. Like, seek out opportunities. I mean, maneuver the board is literally the next point. I'll let you just take it away.
Yeah, literally. Like, you're going to basically find ways to, whatever your mid-round strategy is, you're going to find ways to insulate yourself and accentuate whatever decision you make. You make the decision, okay, there's 7 teams trying to rebuild in this league. I'm going to go compete. Then you start hammering the values that you're getting on. If there's 7 teams trying to rebuild, you're going to have Derrick Henry's, Tyreek Hill's, Mike Evans types just fall into you at a value, and you can build a monster team for year 1, year 2 with that league, and vice versa. If everybody's hammering those competitive assets, you're going to get deals on the Luther Burdens of the world, the Emeka Egbukas of the world, that people don't know what to expect out of those players. So if the whole draft thinks they're contending, unproven players are going to slide. If the whole draft thinks they're rebuilding, those proven players and competitive assets are going to slide. Try to collect future rookie picks, especially, like you said, if you are rebuilding. About 70-80% of the time, this strategy will probably be pretty optimal in your leagues, and you can build an absolute monster by year 2, year 3 of the league, because you've collected the picks at their cheapest point, and you're going to have them when they get to their highest point if you're just willing to pump 1 year of buy-ins. If you've determined that it's wise to contend and sacrifice a little bit of value on those productive assets, personally, I like to shoot for a 2 to 3 year production window. Like, you see some of the names that I took in that mock draft. I'm not really the type of person that will select a Derrick Henry or that will select a Tyreek Hill in a startup. I like drafting Godwin's, JT's, James Cook's, Chris Olave's, maybe leaving a little bit on the table as far as production is concerned to stay semi-flexible to be able to make a decision on if my team... People could argue that that's not an optimal strategy. I personally like to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it gives you more security to potentially make like an aggressive move, like with your rookie pick capital as opposed to your startup pick capital. It really depends. Like, for me, I'm a little bit more polarizing in the sense that I shoot for value accrual ceiling. I shoot for how the market, in my opinion, based off my calculations, is going to perceive the assets a year time. So that's just the difference there. Difference is like, I'm willing to take a little bit more risk because I'm focused on the fact that if this player performs the way I expect him to, the market will adjust the way I expect it to.
Yeah, and we got a little bit of Keba Danny there. So maneuver the board was the point that you were making reference to.
Yeah.
and I made reference to this earlier, the names in the middle rounds are going to blend together. Like, for example, Jonathan Taylor, Quinshon Judkins. The team archetypes going after those two players are going to be completely different, and people are going to prefer James Cook or prefer Trevion Henry. Like, there's going to be differing opinions. Everybody has different priorities, and some dynasty drafts, if you look at a dynasty draft of ours, round 6 to 10, versus a different creators or a casual league mates, it might look completely different league to league.
It will look completely different.
Because for this reason, it makes sense to trade down. Collect more swings in that area of the draft. Somebody offers you for the 501, the 607, and the 704. Why would you not make that move? People get impatient, as we talked about. Take advantage of that. Collect future rookie picks. Trade down in, like, again, that 6 to 11-ish range. Get as many swings, as many bites at the apple as you can.
Well, let's just say this. Yeah, sure. Maybe the player trading down from, like, is your wide receiver 21 in Dynasty.
So Zay Flowers for me.
And you're moving down to a spot where your wide receiver 27 will be and picking up a 2026 too. Well, if you view the 21 and 27 relatively close enough in terms of their production value, in terms of their potential value accrual, in terms of overall their profile and how you view them as a dynasty asset, insulating yourself for that too just give you 2 shots at the chamber.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of taking Zay Flowers, who would be my wide receiver 21, I get a Emeka Egbuka and a 2nd-round pick, or a Emeka Egbuka plus a 9th-round startup pick or something, whatever you get back in the trade. So maneuvering the board, especially in the middle rounds, definitely crucial, because I would say, generally speaking, people are less likely to trade down, trade up in the early rounds than they are in the middle rounds. The middle rounds usually, like, I've done startups where nobody makes a single trade until like round 3.
Yeah. No, I noticed that specifically. I mean, in the league I'm in right now, like, I've probably made half of the deals in this startup already. And I want to say the first 2 rounds, everybody stuck a pick at the exact spot.
Yeah, exactly. People, everybody's got their guys, right? Everybody wants to, I'm on the board. And, like, they're all such great
there might have
players.
been one trade.
There's all such great players, too, that people are just like, I'm just going to take Drake London here. Like, what am I, like, why would I trade down from this player? You know what I mean? So the late rounds, what I like to do, and you can kind of give your strategies, I like to focus on ranges of outcomes. And again, this will depend on what you did in the other rounds. Like, if you're a contending team, ranges of outcomes might be different than if you're a rebuilding team. Contending team range of outcomes might be like, hey, I think Darnell Mooney actually could be a top 36 wide receiver this year. So in the 14th round, I'll take a shot on him. Versus for you, maybe you're a rebuilding team. Hey, I'm going to take the swing on, Pat Bryant, because I like the draft capital, and he could really accumulate a lot of value in that format because only Cortland Sutton is there at wide receiver.
Now, let's say you want to balance portfolios. Maybe, in the 18th round, for example, in the No Flocken League a couple years ago, when he was actually, I want to say it was like the 21st round, back when he was like a backup on the 49ers. This was when Trey Lance was hurt. This was when, Brock Purdy was about to, become the full-fledged starter. I took a swing on Sam Darnold. It's like, okay, I don't expect much from Sam Darnold. And sure enough, a year later, he's starting on the Vikings. Now he signs a deal with the Seahawks. And it's like, I paid a 21st round startup pick for that. Or Jonnu Smith of this year, for example. You probably gotten like the 23rd round of your startup drafts a couple years ago. That would be a huge hit. Really, for me, my optimal strategy is looking at situations and trying to predict what the implied value would be for a player on the market if they did get the opportunity. Sam Darnold, I realized, even though I didn't know he'd go to the Vikings, I'm like, okay, if Purdy ever got hurt and he was insulated with Shanahan and this 49ers offense, he'd have a chance to produce. Jonnu Smith, he's an athletic tight end profile with a year of production in the past. Maybe he finds his home somewhere and has a production. Like, you could make the case. Obviously, it's revisionist history because if we knew all this inherently back then, those guys would be way higher startup picks than they were. But now when you look back at it and you see, okay, no, there was actually a plausible scenario, and their implied value did hit that scenario.
Yeah, exactly. Are they going to smash if they hit? Maybe they don't smash. Maybe they're a Jonnu Smith or a Darnell Mooney, and they give you meaningful production, but they're not like crushing. Are they the type of asset that can gain a ton of value? A premier example of this would be like Anthony Richardson right now. If he hits, he would absolutely crush his ADP right now. But you also have to factor in range of outcomes. He also could be a wasted pick in the 10th, 11th round. You could have a guy that's going too low because of injury, for example. Maybe, a Jonathan Brooks is going in the 22nd round of your startup because of the injury that he suffered. Maybe it's worth a shot at that point in time. Is the player that you're about to draft maybe just like a low ceiling option, like a Christian Kirk or something that maybe you should let the league mates of your league take the risk on? Is this player maybe going to hold value a calendar year from now too? Because you might draft a player, let's say Keenan Allen signs to a team where he can get receiving volume. and you take him in the 19th round of a startup, already knowing inherently that he's a dead asset a year from now.
So the startup, which startup was it? I believe it was either I think it was Don't Give a Flock. I took Stephon Diggs in our startup in like, I want to say round 13 or 14. Right before he signed for the
next day he signed with the Patriots, and Danny had Drake May on his roster. Yeah. So that was an unintentional stack. But again, in the late rounds, and by late rounds, I mean like after all of the functional dynasty assets that can fetch a second round picker off the board. Take shots on players. Like, you know me, I'm going to take a 25th round swing on Zach Wilson in case he's the next Sam Darnold. I'm going to take a swing on Noah Fant because I still think he's an athletic tight end. Like, take swings on guys that you think that are talented. Maybe their redraft projections, their underdog ADP is a little bit higher than people realize or something like that.
And like, for example, like I hyped up when we were doing the underdog string the other day. It's like, I still think that like Elijah Mitchell's a talented player. If you want to take him the 27th round of your startup and he had a 3-week stretch where you got volume to the Kansas City Chiefs, like you see the path of the implied value. And ultimately for me too, another factor, the last one I'll make on this section specifically, obviously, quarterback, wide receiver, tight end, if you have conviction, take them. My default always will be, is there a good situation? And is there a running back that could face opportunity? Because that is the easiest quick flip of value that you can get. If you get a running back for, early 4th round equatable costs, because you got him in the 21st round of your startup, and there's a week where he gets 20 touches, like, inherently you're going to be able to flip him for at least a 3. Or potentially a 2-for-3 swap.
Yeah, like Tank Bigsby was probably going in the 20th round last year because of how bad his rookie season was.
Alexander Madison.
Yeah, you're like, hey, I might as well take a shot on this guy. I like to do that with tight ends too, where it's like I took Cade Otton in the 22nd round last year, and he was actually a usable tight end for a lot of people.
Dude, could you imagine if after Trey McBride's rookie season, you took Trey McBride in like the 17th round of your startup or the 16th round of your startup, wherever he was going? Like,
yeah, and those guys would be like Ben Sinnott, Jatavian Sanders, or whatever right now, or any of the Terrence Ferguson, somebody like that.
Even cheaper, like when Jake Ferguson initially broke onto the scene, like he's top 12 tight end that year or the year before in startups. Like I saw him get added off of waivers in leagues.
Yeah. So late round picks. I mean, know inherently that you're probably only going to hit on 2 or 3 of them, and the rest of the guys are going to become roster cloggers and guys that you eventually probably replace. You'll probably replace them eventually with 2nd and 3rd round rookie picks on your roster, throw them to your taxi squad, whatever the case is. So late round stuff, again, we have videos on good late round options to go after. And we also have videos too on like how to build a rebuilder, the types of teams, the monsters, the contenders, like those types of teams. We have those videos if you want to check those out. But getting into kind of like the post draft of it all.
Let me ask you this.
What's up?
In your definition, what is a successful startup?
My successful startup definition is honestly just, do you have a clear direction? So you could have been a rebuilder, and your clear direction was, I'm going to collect as many friggin' picks as I possibly can. I'm going to get a couple foundational assets. You walk out of your startup with Malik Neighbors, Puka Nacua, and 2 foundational quarterbacks, and nothing else but 1st and 2nd round picks over the next couple of drafts. That's a clear direction. You know exactly where you're going at that point. The same could be said for, okay, in the 6th round, I realized that all of these competitive assets were falling, and I got Christian McCaffrey at 601.
Yeah.
I'm going to just build the most dominant 1 to 2 year window team I possibly can, and come 2027, I'll be bad then. But hopefully I've already banked up a championship or 2.
Yeah, I completely agree. Having a clear direction is part of it for me. The other part of it would be, did you build a surplus value? You have a clear direction and you've built surplus value. And people will hear, well, surplus value, like I mentioned in terms of the quarterback core that you had surplus value quarterback. When I mentioned surplus value from a generalized standpoint, I'm basically just simply meaning, let's just say 6th in your league on the My Teams Analyzer, or 5th through 8th, 4th through 8th is generally the average range of your startup. Are you a top 3 team on the My Teams feature? Because if you're a top 3 team on the My Teams feature and you can actually see the point allocations beside your teams, you'll know, okay, well, if I'm top 3, I clearly have a surplus of value compared to 9 other teams in my league.
Yeah, and the way that our My Teams feature works, obviously, to be a top 3 team, you would have to have very good foundational assets. You'd have to have a lot of good assets. You'd also have to probably have good draft capital banked up as well. If you walk out of your startup and you have 2 extra 1st round picks and your team is comparably as good as the other teams, you're probably going to be ranked number 1 on the startup analyzer, because generally 2 startups are going to be closer together. If a league's been in, service for 4 years, there's probably going to be a wider gap between the bad teams and the good teams. But in a startup, you can only draft so bad. There's a good chance that the best team in the league is not that much better than the 12th best team in the league versus, like I said, if the league's been around for 4 or 5 years.
The last point I'll make in relation, because obviously we're talking about the post startup in general, in redraft, it's about Are you right or wrong on the player take? That micro take that you have can determine whether or not you lose your league. In Dynasty, the beauty of it, one single decision like that, if you insulate yourself correctly, isn't going to impact your overall bottom line of your team if you play your cards right.
Of course, especially when you're like the two of us. If I make 10 trades in a calendar year in one league and I win quote unquote 7 of them, then I netted positive even if I lost one like terribly. Like even if I got smoked on one of those trades. So another thing to think about post draft is too, you might have some work to do after a startup, because generally if you go contender, it's hard to have no holes out of a startup. And also if you're a rebuilder, you maybe picked up a couple guys that you'll want to flip. Like let's say, for example, you just drafted David Njoku at the end of the 10th round in the startup right before we started recording.
Yep.
You're a rebuilding team. David Njoku's 29 years old. You don't want an old tight end on your roster, but you just think he's undervalued, and come during the regular season, if he's producing like he produced last year, you can flip him for probably more than what you got him for in the startup.
I want to say he was like the tight end 11 or 12 off the board in this startup, and I got him at the 10, 11. Like, yeah, he doesn't fit the overall demographic. My team is a 28-year-old, older tight end, a couple injuries in the past, but like the guy's been a top 4 producer point per game each of the last 2 years, and it's a tight end premium league. What are we doing? He should not be on the board at the 10, 11. So even though I built my team young, I know inherently if he goes back and he produces the way I think he's capable of, as a top 5 level point per game tight end, like he's literally been doing the last 2 years, I know I'm going to get better equatable value in season than the 10, 11 startup value I got him at.
Yeah, and when you're a rebuilder, you don't want to make it a habit to take a bunch of players like that.
You want to take extreme outliers.
Yeah, extreme outliers, like this guy should have been way off the board, and I'm going to take him simply because I feel like I can flip him for more. You don't want to give yourself more work than you need to. Like if
you're an active manager, okay, maybe you can accept more. Like if you're more so like a little bit more casual, like don't want to like for me, I know I can take a David Njoku because I will be working the phones tirelessly with the other 11 managers when I need to be able to flip. Like if you look at my sleeper DMs, I am in contact with 4 or 5 dynasty managers in my league at all times at once.
This is Danny's life.
I'm a psycho.
He's a complete psycho, and maybe play in less leagues than we play in. Otherwise, you're going to be on your phone 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
So many times Corey's like, Danny, how the fuck do you get so many trades done? I'm like, I'm consistently communicating with people.
It's crazy because I get done like maybe 60% of the trades that you do, and I'm still by far and away the most active manager in my league. So it's insane how much more active you are than even I am. So end of this video aside, if you guys want to check out the Flock My Team's trade calculator and rankings features, again, all the expert
single most valuable resource,
that stuff is free. You can get just the expert consensus on the My Teams feature, the expert rankings on the trade calculator by starting a 7-day free trial. If you don't want to sign up for the site, check out all the features of the site. If you want to sign up for a subscription, obviously use the promo code FSE, 30% off, 7 days for free, 6 months for free when you sign up annually, a free team review voucher to help us rate your startup. If you guys are about to enter a startup, you want us to break it down live on the channel, you'll get a free review voucher when you sign up annually. But if you just want to use the free features, those are extremely valuable for you as well to help you guys get going in your Dynasty startups. And again, as Danny made reference to earlier on, in the video, we are doing a DEVY startup, which means there's a couple college players in it. For those of you guys that are unfamiliar, check out the link down below in the description if you guys want to sign up for that. You get 1 ballot for free entries, 2 ballots for monthly Mother Flocker and Flockers over on the site using promo code FSE only. Annual Flockers, 3 entries. Annual Mother Flockers, 5 entries. So if you are an annual Mother Flocker with promo code FSE, you have 5 times the chances of getting in that league with us. We will be drawing names for that on June 15th, which is, I believe, a Sunday, and then we'll be drafting shortly after that. So if you guys want to join that league, definitely check that out. And then, of course, like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed this.
Come make some trades with me.
Yes, yeah. You want to be working the phones with Danny like he's got absolutely nothing else to do. That is exactly what will happen if you join this league. So again, appreciate you guys for joining us. Stay tuned for the trade strategy video coming in a couple of days. Peace out, and we'll talk to you soon.